Defense Headquarters has announced the existence of a new terrorist sect in the northwestern part of the country, known as Lukarawas. The director of Nigeria's Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, while accusing residents of some of the states in the region of embracing the group, says that they refused to report the activities of the terrorists. General Buba, however, assured citizens that operations are currently ongoing to dislodge them from the country. Amadine Uyi has more in this report.
The briefing was supposed to update citizens of the ongoing operations against terrorist groups and criminal elements across the country. However, it came as a shock to those present as the director of the Defense Media Operations announced that the military had identified the existence of a new terrorist group in the northwestern region of the country.
Troops are confronted with a new terrorist sect in the northwest. This sect is known as Lukarawa. The Lukarawas are affiliated to terrorists from the Sahel, particularly from Mali and Niger republics. They began incursion into northwestern part of Nigeria, namely Sokoto and Kebbi states. And like I mentioned, they came in from Niger and the Mali axis.
He accused residents in the area of embracing the group, but assured that the military is already working round the clock to dislodge them from the country.
When they came in, did the people see them? They saw them. What did they do? They embraced them rather than report them. And what has that resulted to? The people saw them as friends. The same friends they thought were friends have turned to foes. And we did not get this report on time until we started creating some havoc. We are on top of that situation. We have sustained our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and accordingly carried out air interdiction, ground offensives to degrade these terrorists, find them, flush them, until we finally defeat them, the same way we have defeated terrorist groups in the northeastern part of this country.
The director urged citizens to be security conscious and partner with the military, especially in the area of intelligence sharing. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And joining us to further expand on the conversation is security consultant and expert Oyekachi Adekoya. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning to the viewers.
All right. Does this come as a surprise to you, the emergence of Lukarawas? I think for a number of people who are not in the security space, there's a bit of panic, and we've started to see a number of people express that. But as someone who's in the security space, does it come to you as a surprise?
No, not at all. You can call them Lukarawas, you can call them ISWAP, you can call them armed criminal groups. They are who they are. They are armed criminal groups operating in the Sahel. There's nothing new about their operations. Names will change every now and then, but the actors are pretty much the same. So they are within that belt where we've been complaining that you have what I like to call black market operators. So you must understand that in the interplay of international politics and the rest and some geopolitics, some of these actors are part of an influence operation, and they operate on the fringes of certain territories, you know, influencing sometimes local happenings, exerting pressure, you know, masquerading as jihadists. There's nothing jihadist about them. At the heart of the operation are all economics, some economic interests against our own national interests. So it's nothing new about the name as of today.
He mentioned that they came in from Niger and Mali. Is there something to worry, with that detail?
No, it's just a convenient excuse to say they came in from Niger. You can say that since the coup in Niger, there's been some destabilization. Of course, Mali has its own issues with Islamic groups. You see the fight between France and Russia in some of the parts of those countries. You've seen some Russian groups interdicted and ambushed, as it were, killed in Mali. So the Sahel region has been destabilized for the last 20 to 30 years. So in whatever name or form or shape they present themselves at, it's nothing new. It's just, it's what you call in my language, ariwoja. If you go to the market, you hear traders, hawking their wares and making all that noise. So today is...
ariwoja.
This is ariwoja. It's same operators, same MO, same territory, pursuing just about the same objectives, masked as Islamic jihadists. There's nothing Islamic.
So I think that's another concern. What exactly is the ideology or the agenda? Because over the course of the past few years, we've seen different terror operators or terror groups with different names. We saw under Jonathan's time, we've seen under Buhari's time, we've seen the Boko Harams, ISIS, ISWAP, and now Lukarawa. The name is a bit confusing now.
Yeah.
But, so what really is the goal and the agenda of what they're trying to push for?
So it's most times with these operators, it's difficult to isolate them to local agitations. So you could say, okay, maybe it's a group that has a quarrel with their own local government or state government or national government, as it were. But once you begin to see them morph into transnationalism, you then must look beyond the surface to unearth what are the issues behind them. We are now in a state of geopolitical unrest, and cases like this were rampant when you had the Cold War era, and you've seen some reports come out that sometimes you have state-sponsored certain elements to destabilize or put pressure on some countries to achieve whatever objective it is they are pursuing. So you cannot isolate some level of influence operation in some of these things. When they begin to move from Niger to Mali to Libya, there is a network that supplies weapons. Sometimes our own forces have complained that these guys have intelligence. They have good intelligence. Because you ask, what are you fighting? The Nigerian army is one of the greatest fighting forces in Africa. We have commendable respect even in the national community. So if you say we're fighting just a ragtag army, who's giving them intelligence? Who's supplying them sophisticated weapons? How are they able to sustain? Because in guerrilla warfare or in any warfare against established force, attrition is a strategy. But you cannot do attrition without sustained communication and logistics. So who is sustaining supply logistics for the armed groups, making them a formidable entrenched force? So I think the issue goes beyond Sokoto State, and I'm quite, while I empathize with the military because it just adds to their plate, this is another dimension that adds to their plate. I think that with respect, the defense spokesman made some very colorful statements. To wit that he was chiding the people for supporting and embracing. Yeah, I thought that was quite unnecessary. We are fighting for the hearts and minds of the people. Yes, while that may be the case, you must understand that in the north, religion is a factor, culture. Niger, for example, that borders Nigeria, has over 55% Hausa population. You see, the Hausa we speak in Nigeria is the same that they speak. So across the border, people can present themselves. The culture of the Islam teaches you to be hospitable. The northern culture teaches you to be hospitable. So when people move across border under the ECOWAS free movement protocol, so some culture will take place. But again, like he said, they abuse those privileges. It's all part of their MO of
Besides,
operation.
they may not have presented themselves as terrorists when they were coming. It could have just been a regular, oh, I'm moving to Nigeria. That
is clear. But for the defense headquarters to say they didn't have information, I don't agree with that.
That's also failure on their part, isn't it?
There's no failure. The DSS has, invite the DG DSS. The DSS has a station officer in all the local governments in Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, so
So they can't say they
it's
don't
a
know.
shocking admission that you didn't know that these people were coming in.
I don't. I mean, I'm not sure what figures he's looking at, what facts is. We have the DSS, we have the NIA, we have the DIA.
Yes.
We have a number of intelligence. The police has its own intelligence unit. The customs have their own intelligence unit. The immigration have their intelligence units. I keep saying that in Nigeria, it is not a failure of intelligence. Somebody has to beat me with a stick on the head, and for me to die flat, for somebody to convince me that we have an intelligence failure in Nigeria. We do not. Sometimes intelligence failure is a convenient excuse for certain breaches and failures. What we have is a capability failure. He talked about ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and then using that to coordinate strikes to flush out the terrorists. So that's all fancy speak. When certain people in the security industry speak, sometimes we use very technical language to say nothing.
Yeah.
He has said nothing whatsoever. If you do ISR, we've moved where ISR is now coordinating artillery strikes, with pinpoint accuracy on certain positions. We don't have that capabilities. So it's sometimes a capability problem. The Nigerian defense industry is not anywhere near where it should be. We are not even innovating enough locally to sustain our own operations against the emerging threats on the African continent. And Africa is going to come into the play. As you see this whole spat between BRICS, G7, we are now in an era of strategic global alliance. The world order, as we know, is no longer what it is. The scramble for Africa is coming. And if Nigeria is not careful, we'll be caught in between. We don't have a local defense industry that can support our forces to achieve its objectives. So the ISR speak that the defense headquarters spokesperson is talking about is non-existent. We've seen in this country where commanders of different formations purchase their own drone themselves. So I don't know what ISR is talking about. I don't want to go into some of those conversations. But I do not agree that there is an intelligence failure. There is not.
So, I mean, we were promised in 2015, you know, that the general and the pastor were coming, and the general was going to tackle security, pastor was going to tackle the economy, or somewhat like that. That failed woefully. Now we have a new administration. What would you expect, you know, from the current government to at least curtail the spread of these security threats here in Nigeria, to checkmate the funding for the military expenditure, to ensure that we do not develop 7 new terrorist groups by the end of 2025?
Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do locally to stop the formation of terrorist group. Again, I've said they are part of a transnational network. They serve different purposes and objectives. What you can do is to ring fence your own territory, develop the capacity and the capability to deal with issues within your borders and to push out. You see, the U.S. has what is called the Monroe Doctrine, which says that anything that can impact on America's national security interests within its sphere of influence, America will take action. Nigeria is about the biggest fighting force in ECOWAS. There's nothing stopping us from, you know, pushing our influence around in Niger, Mali, in Chad, if it would eventually impact on us. But if you don't have that capability, if you don't have the teeth, you can only back, you can't bite. Case in point is this part we had with Niger. You know, and they just laughed us off. We could have sent a battalion to Niger and, you know, solved one problem, but then we'll have created a bigger problem because, you know, you couldn't sustaining and holding territory, you need a lot of resources. Now, let's come back to our local issues. And I've said repeatedly, you know, like you said, you had a general and a pastor. Fine as they are as gentlemen, a complete misfit for the problem that we have. We have a structural problem. I said that this administration would not succeed in solving the insecurity problem if it continues with the same order. In fact, I was in a TV station where the transmission was almost tossed when I said that because they thought it was an attack on the president. Look at it successfully. We clamor for change of security chiefs. Yep. We get it, nothing happens. We clamor for change of presidents. We get that, nothing happens. we are doing the same thing over and over again. We're expecting a different result. I wouldn't want to say we are mad, but we have a problem clearly. I didn't say we are. But there's a problem. The problem is that we are over-domesticating our military, over-relying on the military, but operationally, the military is not able to dominate the 920 or 930-something thousand square kilometers of landmass that we have. The military is a territorial force. The military should not be locked in internal security operations. We have a federal police that is not even enough, not sufficient, not adequately trained or resourced or motivated. And they are losing nuance in the local communities. So you don't have a territorial police that is at a subnational level. If we had that, they will act as a force multiplier to the military. So there are small issues, the police gets the economy of the area. If they cannot deal with the issue, they invite a technical team to suppress whatever insurgency while holding certain areas. So what you have is that we keep shooting at a moving target. You solve a problem in Kebbi, it moves to Zamfara. You block Zamfara, Kaduna. It moves to Sokoto. You are dealing with Sokoto, you are coming down back to Katsina. You are dealing with Katsina, it's in Kaduna. So you are dealing with a very agile, adaptable, well-drilled, well-trained, ragtag force that are not just local. That's what I'm saying. It's not a local Sokoto issue.
Yeah, they're properly armed, properly trained, properly...
They are drilled. So if you had state police, I come back to these nonsensical arguments we've been having since. If you had state police, they would be able to some extent, aid in some blocking operations. So the military is the one blocking, the military is the one going after. How many soldiers do we have?
Too much to do, too little people to be able to handle a hydra-headed monster.
Yes, we have a wicked problem.
Do we also have the worry about the possibility of radicalization by this terrorist group of Nigerian, maybe civilians, vulnerable young people? And if so, how do we guard against that?
Well, with very profound respect, we've seen the issue of the so-called minors that were returned to the north and how they did not treat them. They were giving money, giving smartphones. What does that say to you? So I was on a platform discussing the issues in the Southeast. And, the person was saying that if that had been in the Southeast, they would not be returned, they would not be. Then I said to the person, hold on. The politicians are a problem. The problem with the Southeastern politicians is that they call the military against their own people. And when the military comes hard, they then turn back to blame the military playing politics. The problem with our northern brothers is also politics. The politics of religion, the politics of convenience. When we did 1999, when the start of Sharia was going, go to Sokoto. There are more clubs in Sokoto than there are in Ogun State. So it's all sometimes politics.
Like you mean nightclubs?
Yes, in Sokoto than in Ogun State. Wow. So who is deceiving who? The politicians are our greatest problems. The weaponization of illiteracy in Nigeria. Why was then Emir of Kano removed? Lamido Sanusi Lamidi. Why was he removed then? Because he was trying to identify the challenges inherent in the Alamajiri system. The marrying more than enough wives that you can take care of. Nobody says you can't marry, but don't create a problem for society. The weaponization of illiteracy. People are not going to school. There are those communities, they cannot recite the pledge. They don't even, they don't know the color of the Nigerian flag or what the coat of arms stands for. So it's a problem of the National Orientation Agency. But the bigger problem is that we have a problem with subnationals not rising to the plate. Look at the issue of VAT and the proposed rework in the national tax structure. Quickly, it has turned into a case of religion and ethnic politics.
Yes.
Why? Because some people would not put in their own shifts. Why are these things rampant in the north? I'll tell you why. I served in Karasuwa local government. I frequent the north more than any other part of this country. Most of the local governments don't operate. They're on a no-show basis. It's only when they are sharing a location that they will come to the local government. So the people don't see the local. Why wouldn't they endear themselves to the people? Nature abhors a vacuum. We've seen in this country where people pay security money to Ansaru to protect them from
farmers,
bandits.
Yes, having to do that for them to be able to farm. We've heard of situations where they have to pay to these terrorists to be able to guard them against further terrorism. So,
absolutely. So you look at this case in politics in America, for example. They say Donald Trump is this, Donald Trump is that. At the end of the day, people want to survive. And Donald Trump was the only one that spoke to their pockets and their economy. So the same way, in these local places, people understand that there's a Nigerian government, but they want to go to their farm, they want to come back. If they have to pay protection money and the government is non-existent as they see it in their own space, they will do what they have to do to survive.
I mean, it's like you've mentioned, a hydra-headed monster that we have been combating over the years, and we'll still keep combating and hoping that the government then now starts to evaluate the conversation about state police. We've had it with you several times on this show, and we do hope that, in the nearest future, we'll not need to keep revisiting the same conversations because something is being done about it. Onyekachi Adekoya, thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to break now. When we come back, more conversations. Stay with us.